Welcome to Off Code, the show where we ignore the cultural codes and have real and intriguing conversations regarding the Black community and ways we can move forward to human flourishing.
Hey everyone, I am Monique Duson and this is Off Code.
And I am Kevin Briggins and we are excited to get started. So Monique, you mentioned this to me a while back that you wanted to start a podcast, that was something on your heart you wanted to get off and you wanted to start this podcast. And I was like, that is awesome. And then you called me and said, hey, how about you co-host it with me? And I was right on board. I was like, yes, let's do this. So tell people what your heart was and why you wanted to start this podcast.
Okay, so this podcast has been on my heart for, goodness, the better part of 9 months or so. And it's really just to have a conversation with people about the Black community, and not to say that the Black community is, one big community, but a lot of the issues that are being put forward in culture right now are being blamed on whiteness. And I really don't know that we can blame everything happening in like Black inner cities on whiteness. So how do we have conversations that bring people into the truth of what is happening in a lot of communities? And is whiteness even a thing that, many people in lower income communities are worried about? I think the tipping point for me was when I heard Lecrae, or I saw a tweet that Lecrae did. And he said, before we can talk about Black abortion, we should be talking about like whiteness, white supremacy, white systems, and all of that. And I was like, I'm done. We have to be able to talk about these things in public and really get down to the crux of what's happening that makes Black abortion rates the highest in the nation. I don't know that I can blame this on whiteness. So that's kind of my thought on it, having just conversations in general that bring people further along in the conversation of quote unquote Black culture. Not to say that we're a monolith again, but like, how do we combat the narrative that I think is being put forward that, well, these are things that are Black. We don't all think the same. We all have different experiences. But then I asked you to be on the podcast and you said yes. And then you said, how about we call it Off Code? And I was like, Off Code? And then you explained to me what Off Code was. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Off Code?
Yeah. So I was watching a podcast and a guest was on it, and it was a Black podcast, and there was one guest on it who wasn't Black, and they were talking about issues within the Black community, and one girl refused to talk. She's like, I'm gonna stay on code. In other words, she wasn't going to talk about issues or anything negative in front of outside company. And I thought that was very, very interesting. And so I felt like we have to have these discussions because we have them when we're alone, we have them in private, but it was one of those things of, I believe a lot of these conversations need to be public. And so I was like, let's go off code and let's break code and let's have these discussions. Let's say hard things that make us uncomfortable, but let's have these discussions so we can learn and grow from them. Because not talking about these things and only talking about certain issues, or only talking about certain sides of an issue in public while talking about the other side behind closed doors, I don't think is helpful to us. So
yes, I completely agree. I would say an example of like going off code, like you said, is having that discussion publicly or in front of white people. So we would have a lot of conversations, or I would overhear growing up a lot of conversations that were had like between my mom and her friends while they were in the kitchen. Yes. And all the kids are running around. And then here you have this group of people just in the kitchen talking all the drama, all the gossip and everything like that. But I think in real time, when I look at being off code, it reminds me of coming back home from South Africa in 2018. I was surprised just how much conversation was now in the street.
Yeah, absolutely. There has been a lot more conversation in the street as compared to the past. Because I'll be honest, I remember those kitchen conversations too. And one thing that stood out to me was when I became an adult, when I look back on them, I realized, oh, I remember that. Now I know what they were talking about. When I was a kid, it was over my head. But now it's like, okay, I know, I get it. And so those conversations are really, really important conversations. And a lot of people don't think we have them. And
Yes.
so because we only have them behind closed doors. So I think it's important that we do have these conversations in public, because it's confusing to people when they see crazy murder rates in Black inner cities, but yet we're up in arms over a few police shootings, right? They like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, that doesn't sound like, why are you concerned about one and you seem to be silent on the other? It's because
Mm-hmm.
that other conversation we have behind closed doors, right?
Yes.
So let's
Yes.
put it all out there. Let's have it all in public and have a complete whole conversation on many of these issues.
I agree. I agree. So today's issue for our very first episode is going to look at Black marriage. What is happening within the Black community that is leading many Black women away from marriage? I just read a statistic today that said only about that there was maybe 67% of Black women were not married.
Yes. Yes.
And I know you and I have had this discussion offline, but you have some thoughts, I have some thoughts, and this discussion is being had in Black circles, but I don't think the larger American community or many white people would understand that we are talking about marriage, even though it's very few of us who are getting married currently.
Yes.
So, go ahead.
No, I'll say no. It's like we've acknowledged there's a problem. Everybody's trying to figure out what that problem is, and so there's a lot of things being thrown out there. There's a lot of strife right now. If you look in, online, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, there's a lot of discussions being had, but there is a lot of tension between Black men and Black women, and so the conversations being had, I just don't feel is oftentimes very helpful, productive. I don't think we're coming to the right solutions, even if people are diagnosing true problems.
Okay. So I have some questions and topics written out that we can just weigh in on
Let's do it.
and see where we land. And it's because you sent me some clips, you sent me some articles, I read some stuff, and let's just pop off and see what happens.
Let's do it.
So there's within Black marriage, within those who are getting married, the majority of Black people are marrying other Black people. Now,
Yes.
when you go outside and look in interethnic marriage, Black men tend to marry white women at the highest rate, like interracially, when looking at Black men and Hispanic women, Black men and Asian women, and things like that. The largest percentage of outside of the Black population, connection would be to a white person, but it's very few Black women who are marrying white men.
Yes.
First question is, do you think that we should stay within our ethnicity? Like, do you think that it should be Black on Black marriage, that out of all the options available, should we be sticking in the confines of Black marriage to be able to keep even like our ethnicity, our race, alive and things like that? You're married to a Black woman. I am not married. I will bring that information in just a minute. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I don't think that we should stay within our own kind, that mindset. I believe you should marry who you want to marry. That type of racialized thinking, I don't believe that's helpful, especially the more we have integrated into the broader society, the broader culture of America. It's hard to say, I will only date and experience this slither of people. And so I don't believe that we should necessarily limit ourselves to our ethnicities. I think there's a problem when people say, I won't date people of my own ethnicity. I think that is a completely different conversation, but I don't think you should limit yourself to that.
I agree. Man, when I was in the world, and golly, I used to have a saying that like men are like Skittles, taste the rainbow. Now, it was not the way in which that probably sounds, but it was definitely to say, hey, don't limit yourself to just one ethnic background.
Yeah.
And I think my preference would have always been a Black man because of hashtag Blackness. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that I believe that anymore. I truly think that, the Lord will bring, or at least for the Christian, the Lord brings us together, or we, hopefully choose rightly. But yeah, I definitely agree. There is so much room and beauty and freedom in people, and that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be limited just within your ethnic group. So if you decide though to go outside of, and this is one of the things I think that some women fear, is that dating outside of your ethnicity means that you have to code switch. Like, and let me give a definition of code switching. Code
Okay.
switching would be me acting or being a certain way when I'm in front of, especially white people. So I would talk a certain way, I would behave a certain way, but then when I get back home with my people, then I can just be, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just regular. I'm just me, or like if we're at work and we answer the phone and we put on this, very proper accent, not accent, but like tone in our voice and things like
Look,
that.
look, let's keep it real.
Yeah.
You
Go
put on
ahead.
your white voice. You put on your white voice. Let's
That's
just
what
say
we
it.
would say. That is what we
Yes.
would say. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. I mean, I'm here for it. But yes, what I've heard, what I've read is like, man, I can't date outside of my race. When I go to his house or to like his parents' house, I'm gonna have to code switch.
Yeah.
I don't know about that though.
I
Like
don't think so. I don't think you have to code switch in terms of changing who you are. Now, there's certain terminology, there's certain slang that you probably won't use because they can't relate to it, certain cultural references, but you don't have to change who you are, right? I think we take it too far as in terms of who are we, what is my whole identity. So you don't have you might have to code switch in terms of, to me, code switching is more about, am I at home? Am I in the culture? Am I in a professional setting? If I'm simply at somebody's house and this isn't, a professional setting where I'm gonna be me, right? And so, but you do have to pick and choose like who your audience, know who your audience is. If it's a all white middle class group, some of your cultural references you might make, like you and I make to each other, that when we just get it,
mhm.
you might not say that because there's a chance they might not understand because they didn't grow up watching that show or know that reference, that song. But you don't have to change who you are, right? And so I think that the code switching thing is a little bit overblown in that setting.
Hmm. Well, then, what about the argument that is going around right now that regardless of your like ethnic preference or who you're marrying and things like that, that marriage itself is a part of white supremacy, which, and here let me explain the argument. So the argument
Okay.
is that marriage is part of white supremacy because marriage goes to further the capitalistic mindset, the capitalistic culture of America, and
Yeah.
capitalism itself being a part of whiteness and white supremacy. Whereas when you look at um, maybe some of the Eastern cultures, or cultures outside of America that don't have a huge value on capitalism, the goal in marriage is, or partnership, is usually to raise the children, to have the children, to raise them and make sure that they, are alive at the end of the day when they are, adults. They actually are raised to full adults.
Hmm.
But in America, that is part of the goal, but it's also much more than that. And so golly, when I read that, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. Something about it doesn't feel right.
Hmm. Oh, so my thoughts on that is sometimes we're just too educated, right? that you have to get educated to a certain philosophy and worldview to even believe that,
Mhm.
right? I mean, the world didn't start at the founding of America, right? So marriage goes back as far as human civilization. And so this idea that marriage itself is some type of white supremacist tool, that is simply, social gender studies type stuff, right? Because we do know, based on our laws, No, you get married, the wealth stays within the marriage. The person dies, the wealth gets passed down to the kids. It stays within the family. So marriage becomes kind of this benefit to hold on to wealth. Well, if you come from a mindset where you kind of have this socialist, Marxist type of mindset where you want to be able to grab wealth and distribute it as you feel pleased, then you're gonna say, yeah, this whole idea of marriage is oppressive, right? It is holding us back. And so I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't say that. I think the human condition, we need each other. Men and women need each other. We desire marriage. I don't care what culture you find, you're gonna find a form of marriage, right? And so this idea that this trend, I should say, that we don't need marriage, we need to break up the nuclear family, we need to just kind of recreate our own thing. I've seen a lot of these kind of discussions, and it's almost as if people have realized something is broken, something's not working. And instead of getting back to what we know the solution is, everybody wants to come up with something new and different to make it work instead of saying, how do we get back to what we've lost? Because at one point in time, marriage in our community was a normal, constant, expected thing. And we lost it along the way.
Yes, we did. And I would say that we lost it probably somewhere around that welfare phase. But one of the things that I think you're hitting on is that marriage is something that has been from the beginning. Now, if you're watching and you don't know that we're Christian, we are both Christians, and we are historic Christians. So we believe in, a full gospel, a full vision or understanding of Christian history. And so when we look in Genesis 1, one of the things we see is the bringing together of the man and the woman. We see the union of the man and the woman. And this is our grounds for marriage. When the Lord sets the family up, he sets it up first with man and woman, that a man will leave his mother and father and a woman will leave her mother and father. They would cleave to one another. And this is part of my issue with Black people not getting married. And this is a bit of a tangent, but with Black people not getting married, especially Black women, because our rates are so low, is that this is something that is part of God's creation mandate for people. Not just, white people are supposed to get married or, Korean people are supposed to get married. No, when God spoke over creation, what he spoke over humans was marriage and procreation. And, we as a culture are definitely getting away from that with the rise of the Black trans movement and all of those things. But in addition to that, the idea of interethnic marriage, going back to our previous chat, is we don't stop and say, well, I will only date this person or I will only date that person based on skin color or ethnicity. When we look at the scriptures, we see that all people are created in God's image. The goal of who we select should be based on, are they in Christ or are they in Adam? Are they mature in the faith? Are they strong leaders? Are they able to lead their household? Do they love you as Christ loved the church? These are the things that we should be looking for. But yes, goodness gracious. Anyway, that was a cutoff and a tangent. But go ahead.
But it's needed, because the reason we wanted to start this podcast is because there is an element of what you said that is missing from the conversation, right? People are trying to find different ways to solve the problem, but nobody is willing to go back and say, have we lost? What did we lose? What changed? And what really changed was we got away from Christian principles that were so key to the Black community, whether it's the civil rights movement Christianity is key to, whether it's, the principles of marriage. I mean, just growing up, I'll put it like this. We need more Big Mama churches. That's what I would say.
Yes.
we have lost Big Mama's church, Big Mama's religion, Big Mama's church, faith, hope, principles, work ethic. We've lost all of that, all those things. And so I think if we're going to really solve these issues, we got to say, okay, what did we lose and what do we need to get back to? Instead of trying to come up with new things to kind of put band-aids on the problem instead of looking at the root issues.
Well, let's look at that. Let's look, and to me, this, and you might disagree, but to me, this goes down to the entry or like welfare coming onto the scene and what that did to the Black family. What it did to, and not just the Black family, but I think it
Yes.
impacted the Black family more so than other, racial demographics.
Yes. So this idea of Black singlehood or single motherhood within the Black community, I think there's three sides. So we kind of talked about the spiritual aspect of society. I think there's some cultural things that happen and also economic things. So the issue of the welfare state, I believe that is an economic contributor to what we're seeing as far, because it's the numbers, the way the numbers are. So up to the 1960s, Black marriage rate was higher than whites.
Yeah.
And then from the 1960s, you see this steady decline. You go, what really happened? And it's because the state came in and played the role of husband, the role of provider. Women could have kids and be supported without a man being in the house. And not only a man being in the house, it was encouraged that a man wasn't in the house.
That's what I was gonna say. It was encouraged. Like you cannot. Still today, if you go and apply for welfare and they know that you have a working man in the house, even if you need the aid.
Yes. And so, I mean, I know there's one pastor, he talks to single moms about, doing certain things, about getting married. He pushes marriage within the inner city communities. He's ministering to people. And women have told him, like, if they get married, they lose their benefits.
Yep.
So it is a strategic thing to just not get married. And a lot of times what you have is boyfriend, baby daddy simply lives in the house, but they're not going to get married.
They're not going to get married. And then that, to me, that even, gosh, I feel like, and this might be hard, but I feel like when a woman has a child, she is tied to that child. Now, not every woman. Do some women get up and leave their kids? Sure. But the majority of women aren't just going up and leave their kid. Yes. But there are a lot of men within us, our community, that will get up and leave their kid. Will she get a check?
Yeah, it has taken away a lot of the responsibility that men feel in terms of being a provider, because, like I say, she's getting a check. You can also go back to the cultural aspects of this, because this is where we are in our current conversation that I've seen in society, is men pushing back on this narrative that they simply are leaving, that they're saying that women are providing a toxic household, and so they're leaving. And so there are many, many factors that people are pointing at to say, hey, this is why Black marriages aren't working. This is why Black people aren't getting married. And women will say men aren't providers. They're not being faithful. They're dogs. They're this, that. They're being lazy. They're being sorry. And men will say, I just want some peace in my house, and I come home and I got to deal with blah, blah, blah. She in my ear, rolling her neck. I can't make a decision. But like, we're competing for head of household. There is a lot of things that are coming. There's a lot of forces as to why this number is so high, as far as the amount of Black women who are unmarried. And so, yeah, I think we have to look at all of it.
First of all, the neck roll, like if you can't deal with a neck roll, you might just need to sit down for a little bit. Like if that's your biggest complaint, because I'm going to roll my neck, like we roll our neck, like that's what we do. But, and I'm not saying that we have to, I'm not saying that like that's a definitive, but what the conversation does sound like, and things that I've read and watched, is that it's an either or. Either Black women are to blame because we're too motivated, we're too strong, we're too independent, we don't submit, we or the Black man is to blame. All he want to do is sit up on his computer and play games. He he don't want to help with the kids. He don't like to cook. Like he puts it all on me. He doesn't want to support my dreams, but he wants me to support all of his. But it's like it's this either or. And what I think people are missing is that it's actually a combination of many different things.
Yes.
We actually are living in a generation right now that has had the least amount of 2-parent households. And so how do you know how you're supposed to be if you haven't seen it modeled? if you're a woman coming up in this conversation of marriage, how do you know how to be a wife if it's never been modeled to you? And if you're a man, how do you know how to be a husband if that hasn't been presented to you before? You can't go off of the TV shows because that's not real. But this is what people are looking for. This media marriage. That's not real life. But I think each side does have some okay position, some okay points, some things that we might want to look at. You know, is the Black woman, I'll speak as a Black woman, is it that I'm too headstrong? Because I can't be headstrong, let's just be honest. Is it that I wanted to seek after my education, you know, and, you know, go to school before I decided to date and things like that? Possibly, but I think more so than anything, I grew up at a time when the conversation on the street from the older Black women was that you shouldn't need a man for anything. You should be able to provide for yourself. You should be able to work, get your education, and do all of these things. There is nothing that I should need a man for. And when you grow up with that mentality or that messaging being repeated to you, and I heard it from my teachers, I heard it from at home, like I heard it from friends' parents. There's something that just subconsciously gets ingrained, and you begin to do for yourself. I can buy my own shoes. I pay my own rent. I buy my own car. I do for myself. And it's not that I don't necessarily want to be married. This other narrative, though, is just kind of on loop in the background.
Yeah. And so, man, those are good points. And when you were talking about how you were raised as, you know, a young, you know, Black woman growing up, how were we raising Black boys at that time? You know, were we raising them to be men and leaders? No, a lot of single mothers were raising Black boys and babying them, and he got to just be a kid all the way up. His mama was always there taking care of him. And, you know, so you got these strong, Black, headstrong, independent Black women, but you got these Black men who have been kind of coddled by single mom the whole time. And that dynamic just has not played out well because let's be honest, that headstrong, highly educated Black woman isn't going to want to, I'm going to say this dirty word, isn't going to submit to some man who she doesn't feel is a leader. She doesn't feel can lead her family, is a decision maker, is wise, you know, all those qualities. I've heard it said like this, because a lot of Black men are saying Black women don't want to be submissive. And Black women have said, we will submit to somebody who we believe is worth submitting to. And so it's just this back and forth of the standard. And it's just a lot of, I don't know how we get past it. It seems.
Go ahead.
No, it just seems to be that we can point out what is wrong. We can point out, we understand from a social standpoint, looking back, what went wrong, but what does it mean to get past those things to where we can join in union and live? Because one thing you said too was a lot of those women want to be married, but what do they believe marriage should look like? A lot of times, know what they say? They say, well, I'm looking for a partner. They just kind of want this co-buddy that can come alongside them and partner with them in life, and not marriage. What a man is looking for, he's looking for a wife. He's not looking for a co-partner. He's not looking for a co-leader, I should say. And so that dynamic is just, we're missing each other. We're talking past each other, you know, and we just got to get back to the basics, you know.
When you said the word submit, I was like, oh, see, and I mean, today I operate with that word or feel so different about that word, and can see that it was originally designed and used for a purpose. But man, when I was younger, I would just call it the S word. People thought I was swearing. I was like, no, it's no, the SUB word. Yeah. I I would not use the word submit.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's because I didn't need a man to be on top of me. I didn't need a
Mhm.
man to run me, to run my life,
Mhm.
to tell me when I can or cannot go somewhere. Do you know who I am? Like this, it was just my mentality.
Yes.
And today, this has literally just been over the last few years, understanding how men and women are different, one,
Mhm.
and that difference is created and designed by God. But then two, understanding even what it means for a wife to come under her husband,
Mhm.
like, and to be led, and how, like, what are the qualifications when you said, what are the qualifications you're looking for in a marriage? What is marriage to you? Well, it's just partnership. No, actually, yes, you are his helpmate. You are partners in this, but there's something deeper than that. He is to
Yes.
be your leader. He is the priest of his home. Like, there is something that you should be led in, and he should be able to lead you and your kids. Now, if he
Mhm.
can't do that,
Mm. Then
that's
why are you
something
with him?
else.
Why are
Well,
you
that's
with him?
that's my question right there. Because I could be alone in a corner with a jellyfish and be
Mhm.
cool. But
Yeah.
I think women have a skewed version or vision of what they want, but then men also have this skewed vision of what they think they should be.
Mhm.
Like, you come into the house with, that's my house, and da 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 da,
Yeah.
and we go, well, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
How are you leading? How are you loving your wife as Christ loves the church? Within our community, we see a lot of issues. And all of these issues just aren't present because of Black women and they rolling their neck or rolling
Yeah.
their eyes. Some of
No.
these issues come up because men have abdicated their position. Why do we
Mm.
see, and this not even about marriage, but why do we see so many female-led Black churches? Because men, to me, have abdicated their position. That, I'm just saying. But when we look in like the larger context of marriage overall, you don't see a lot of men standing up and being like, look, I'm going to lead you according to the ways of scripture. I'm going to lead you according to, what Paul talks about and how a man should be, a man of one wife. We have people, famous people, openly declaring today they're like polyamorous relationships
Mhm.
and, all of these things. So I feel like, yeah, we can talk about women, but dude, like, I can't forget the men in this conversation.
Yeah, you're right. And like I said, let's take it back to basics. So at some point in time, we talk about, now I said we need to get back to a big mama church. We've lost that discipleship aspect of it. And this is how I've always described marriage when I talk to younger people about the submission word, that S word, right? Yes, the Bible says, wives, submit to your husbands, as unto the Lord. Like, there
Mm.
is a real command that you submit to your husband the way you will submit to the Lord. That we can't overlook that. But right following that, it's husbands. Love your wives as Christ loves the church, even to the point of death. And so
Yes.
it's one of those things of, and so I'm married. If I'm loving my wife as Christ loves the church, I'm putting her um, desires, needs, her benefit before my own.
Mhm.
I'm loving her sacrificially. If I'm doing that, then the part of wives submit to your husband is not a hard thing to do,
Yes.
because she understands that I have her best interest in mind, even if it's something where we
Oh.
disagree on.
Mhm.
She knows that my heart is for her and her good and our good as a whole.
But see, this comes down to a lack of trust
Oh,
because, one, we don't know what we're doing. Let's just be honest. Not a lot of us know what we're doing in the
yes.
relationship space. And now what you're telling me, I've been raised to be independent, bold, outspoken. People don't just talk to me any kind of way. And now you telling me you want me to submit? You want me to trust this guy who, I've known him for a couple years. We'd been dating for a couple years. I don't know if that's enough time to say that you get all my trust, even if I'm trying my hardest to trust you. And then you get a guy over on this side and he's so close to his mama that, don't nothing come between them. And now you, as another woman, are coming in and saying, trust me. Trust
Mm-hmm.
me. No, I got you. I got your back. Like, I'm going to be here.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I think the trust issue is a very big issue within our community because one, when you get together with your girls, what's the first thing that come up? Oh, Tyrone. You know
Mm-hmm.
Tyrone, da, 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 he dirty. Then you get
Mm-hmm.
together with your guys, and it's like, oh, I done did this, 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 and the other thing. There's no true mutual respect and trust that would bring us together.
Yes. Another aspect, because I just thought about what you said about, she get with her girls and they're talking, he get with his guys and they're talking. Where is the accountability within those groups?
Mm,
Some dude, she'd be like, dude, you can't be doing that, right?
mm-hmm.
You got to treat her better than that. You need to be
Yep.
faithful. You need to man up,
Yep.
right? You need to forsake all that other stuff out there you chasing,
Yep.
right? And where are the women telling her, like, look, either you gonna be with him or you not,
Yep.
right? Either he's your man because you're choosing him. Either he's your
Mm-hmm.
man or he's not. Treat him like your man.
Yeah.
That accountability seems to just be absent on both sides.
Yeah. And
So there's a lack of community there.
how are we preparing? Like you said, the accountability. I think another word like that you used earlier is discipleship. How are we
Mm,
discipling people to understand what marriage is? So I didn't come into church until like seriously come into church until I was about 16. Um, and even at that time, there was nobody talking about, this is how to date as a
mhm.
young woman. Um, I was taught how to pray, taught worship, things like that. But the idea of being in relationship, that wasn't taught. I remember there was one class on like a woman's class, and I didn't go because I was like, that's dumb. And I mean, I'm serious. I thought it
Yeah,
was dumb. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to know how to set a table and fold napkins
Ooh, yeah.
and all that kind of stuff because I can hire somebody to do that for me. Or I
That's
like
just that's just old fashioned.
it just it
Yeah.
felt very like that's what old women do. That's
Mhm.
what women who are just gonna be under their man do. And I was not raised like that.
Yeah.
But now I realize that that is a very useful skill,
Mhm.
you know? Um, but there's no discipleship in how are you a wife? And so like when I think about the word that says young women are to be like trained and taught by the older women.
Mhm.
Well, you can teach me how to pray, you can teach me how to worship, you can, teach me the word of God and things like that, but you don't teach me what it means to be married.
Yeah, there's a cycle that needs to be broken because a lot of the advice the older women were giving wasn't good advice.
Mm,
It was because they were hurt. There was trauma, right?
mhm,
They were hurt, and they was like, "Look, baby, don't you have to depend on no man. You take care of you. You do you. You go to school. You get your education. You get your degrees. You get your own,
mhm.
right?" Um, they had good intentions, but they set us back in terms of marriage and relationships. Just because that mindset is good for some things, but it ultimately wasn't what makes you a wife. So we talk about what is it that, and there's one thing I do appreciate about the current conversation that's being had online, social media, is no one had ever asked, what is it that men want? It was always, what do women want? It was always women saying, this is why I'm so appealing because these are the qualities I possess. But nobody had ever asked, hey, what is it that men are actually looking for? And so men are starting to speak up what they're looking for. And what they're looking for, we're finding out, is not the things that women are saying that they value about themselves, like their education, how much money they make, their status, all these things that they value that they believe makes them um, a quality, suitable partner or wife. Those are not the things that the men themselves are even actually looking for or valuing. And so there's a values issue of missing one another, where men are saying, no, I value, you know, um, I don't want to say submissiveness, but just the way you treat me. Am I your man? You know, men are valuing the idea of, what's the word? Being cooperative. That's the word they're using. And we can look at, okay, how does
Yeah,
that work
I'm
out?
like,
How
give
does
me
that?
some examples of this.
Yeah,
Cooperative. Like,
I'm gonna be honest. So let's be real. Let's
mm,
be off code. Everybody know when you say the term Becky, what Becky mean, right?
yeah.
Becky is more, you know,
Cooperative.
cooperative. Yeah. Becky doesn't, give you lip mouth when you come home. Becky isn't, Becky kind of more understands her role, as you can say. You know,
Oh, see,
look,
uh-uh.
put like this. Becky ain't trying to compete with you for head of household. That's what.
See, and I don't know that it's about that. Like, I feel like that is a persona that people put out there, but I don't necessarily know that that's true. Like,
It,
just because I'm outspoken or because I tell you exactly what I'm thinking doesn't necessarily mean that I need to compete with you for the head of household. It could just be that I'm articulate and I want to have like dialogue and we can have that conversation. Like, I'm not trying to just let you go with something that I might not agree on.
I agree. So I heard it put this way. Because it's not about being silent. It's not about not having a voice. It's about how do you use the talents. What is the talent of a woman? And they would say that the strength of a woman is her ability to be persuasive to a man,
Mhm.
right? So are you coming at him rah 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 rah, or are you rubbing his back? Yeah, hey, babe, I see what you're saying on that, but have you thought about just that it's how you're coming at him. It's not necessarily being silent. It's simply the method in which you try to persuade or convey your position or
Ooh,
get what it is you want.
goodness gracious. Yes, see, growing up, I like my thought would have been, why do you need me to like soothe out your ego so much? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is
Yeah,
it really that? Is it really for men, for black men? Like, because I think white women and white men they getting married at like 50%, something like that. So it's like, is it an ego thing? Is it that you can't like if you say, well, I disagree, and I'm like, well, I disagree too. This and the other thing that
mhm.
you can't like a black man can't handle that. They don't want that. Like to me, it's more um I don't know, disingenuous maybe to feel like, well,
Mhm.
let me, tone it down. Let me come around this way and let me come around that way when I can just say, what, let me just tell you. Now, out of respect and out of love, I'm not gonna curse you out, but I also don't feel like I need to back myself down so much. And this reminds me of like college conversations because the black guys would date the white girls or the
Mhm.
black girls that were more, you know, Becky-ish.
Cooperative.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, we would say some things, but it's like you don't want to deal with
I,
us.
I'm gonna take it back to scripture. I find this scripture hilarious just because you can kind of see where it goes. But it's a proverb, and it says it's better for a man to live on the corner of a roof than in a house with a quarrelsome woman.
Mm, 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 mm.
It's better than him to live on the corner of the roof than in the house with a quarrelsome woman. So this isn't necessarily a black man thing. There's something to this. When I come home, I don't want to fight.
Yes.
I don't want to battle. I leave the battlefield of the world. I come home. I want some peace. I want to, and so I think that just plays a big part in who these men are choosing to be, because I think it's 85% of black men are married to black women.
Hmm.
But that's more so because of the older generation. The younger generation is more like 25% are marrying outside of uh, the race. So
And I would say
as
it's
we
85% of married black men, not 85% of all
yes,
black men.
yes.
Yes.
So 85% of married black men are married to a black woman.
Hmm.
But that's a lot of times having to do with the older generation. The younger generation, that percentage is lower.
Hmm.
There are more black men not married to black women. the younger the generation is. And there's multiple factors for that. It isn't just this. It's just as we've, become more into the broader culture, you start getting exposed to more things. The Black community itself is, expanded out from the inner cities, and you're being exposed to different people. And so you're going to end up marrying people who aren't necessarily of your ethnic group just because you're exposed to more people.
Yeah. One of the stats I read was that, gosh, I don't remember the numbers, but the higher the degree, the less likely the Black man was to marry a Black woman.
Yes. And that's why a lot of times we talk about pro athletes and celebrities too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Higher the income, higher the degree, less likely they are to marry a Black woman. Mm-hmm. But I do think even in that statistic, it takes two to tango. And so listening to your proverb on, it's better to live on the corner of a roof for a man than it is to with a quarrelsome woman. Do you think that part of the messaging that Black men are being given is that we just don't need them?
I think that's
I'm about to buy me a shirt that say I need you, boo. I need you, boo.
No, and you know what? And that would be helpful. I think, because you talk about ego. I do think ego is a part of it. And I do think Black men want to feel like Black women want them. Mm-hmm. And not I can do good all by myself, or I can do bad all by myself. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, there was a time, and you know what? I have not been in the dating scene in a while, so I'm not sure what is out there now. But there was a time when it was like, you know what? No, I don't want to settle for this. I don't want to settle for you on your Xbox smoking weed and
please don't do that.
No, the devil is a lie. But if that's what my options are, because the more educated men are going after people outside of the Black community, well, then I'm gonna have to be by myself, because the weed smoking Xbox playing guy who still live in his mama basement ain't for me. No. And so while I hear, this thought that, there is a vibe among some Black women that, well, I don't need a man. It could just be, I don't need that kind of man. I do think that we get jaded too. We've seen what our daddies did. We've seen what Uncle, Harry and all them did, and the guys who grew up on the block and all that. And we just become protective of our own hearts.
Yes. Man,
and so
that is...
and then it's like, well, how do men, y'all want your ego stroked and you want to feel good. You don't want to be living up on the corner of the roof. But how do you also participate with your Black woman and with Black women in general to let them know, hey, look, I know that time sucked. I know that was, this is the messaging that's been ingrained in you. And yet.
Yes.
Because we want the conversation is like, the women need to come on over. They need to be submissive. They need to da-da-da-da. But you don't understand, honey, you also participate in that. And how are you going to help participate in unwinding some of the spiral that we've been in, partly because of the lack of Black presence or Black male presence?
Yeah. And I'll say this too, because a lot of this conversation isn't taking place in the context of a Christian worldview. So a lot of the way the men are expressing their concerns isn't very healthy, right? Because the one thing they're missing out, they're looking at it from a very naturalistic perspective.
Yes.
And so what they're missing out though, and you said about protecting your heart, what men don't seem to understand is that women need financial security, emotional security, right? And if you're not providing those two things, then telling her just to submit to you, that's a tough sell. Are you providing financial security to her? Are you providing emotional security to her?
Yes.
Running out doing your thing and telling her just to be home and be submissive, that ain't gonna work, right?
Yes.
So it is definitely a two-way street that men and women both need to learn what it means to be husband, what it means to be wife. What does it mean to put someone else completely over yourself? When you have two people doing that, that is how a marriage works, but when it's all about me and mine, it's all about what I need, my goals. I just want you to come alongside me and my goals. That's y'all gonna be, if y'all ain't gonna work out, y'all gonna be, divorced in 2 or 3 years. Because
sitting up there on divorce court. When you were saying about the emotional security, I think that's even deeper than financial security.
Absolutely.
Like
because she'll stay with you in the struggle, in a financial struggle. She'll stay with you If you're
But I
providing
need,
emotional security, yeah.
yes, yes. And even before you get married, and this is what I think that people don't understand, is that if you choosing to sleep with her or you choosing to sleep with him, it's gonna break down some of that trust and emotional security.
Hmm.
Like there's a reason why sex is meant to be within the confines of marriage.
Yes.
There's an emotional connection and tie that is formed when two people engage in sexual relations. And
Yes.
now let's say y'all break up or he cheat or things like that, that just continues to erode away at that trust. But we
Yes.
aren't talking about these things. Instead, we give out condoms in the schools and,
Hmm.
just do what you do and it'll be
Yeah.
all right and
And,
things like
and
that.
and don't get married young. Go live your
Yeah.
life.
Go
So by
live
the
your
time you
life.
30, 35 trying to get married, you bringing all of this baggage into this marriage or this relationship of all your broken relationships, all the people you've slept with, all of that
Mhm.
brokenness. Now you want to bring it into it. We need to stop listening to people that say that kind of stuff.
Yes, and what people do, and you know what, this is gonna be a hard word, but what I feel like a lot of women don't understand too is that men ain't trying to get with you when you have kids.
Mm,
Like that, a lot of them don't want to deal with this baby daddy drama.
yes. Yes.
I feel
Yeah.
like women are more apt to deal with baby mama drama than men are to deal with baby daddy drama. Like
Yes.
don't nobody want that drama.
Yes.
And so now I feel like the struggle gets even harder to find, connection and relationship.
It does. And so one thing they're discovering too with older Black women, 35 to 40, professional careers, really successful, have put marriage off to chase the bag. What they're finding is they're saying, okay, I want to be married now. I want to have some kids before my clock runs out. And what they're finding is because they want a man that's on their level, they're finding the men who are on their level financially and education wise and in that age range, he's now looking for a 25, 26
Yes.
year old.
Yep.
He's not looking for 38-year-old.
Mhm.
Right. And so what she is looking for isn't what he's looking for. And so what she ends up doing, because she won't settle, is she ends up just being alone. And
Mhm.
it's sad. It is sad. Um, Controversial name, Kevin Samuels. He always said, he said, go buy a dog. Go get your
Oh,
dog because you're gonna be alone.
yep.
Like it's sad, but there's some truth to it. It
Yeah.
really is. And I know in my family, just what I see around, there's just so many single Black women. It's just so many. And you just
Mhm.
wonder, like, why is this not? And I've seen them date, and I'm be honest, I've seen some of the dudes that's out there, and I tell them, I'm like, look, I feel bad for y'all because some of these dudes just sorry, right? So it's
Mhm.
not it's not a one-way street. It is a two-way street. It is a two-way problem until we sit down together and have these conversations and really talk about what it means to be husband, wife, what it means to raise a family, what it means to be one. And it's one thing too, suffer. Be willing to suffer for a better
Yes.
good.
Mhm.
This whole is I'm out as soon as things don't go the way I want it. And
It's
that ain't the
tired.
Black. That's a societal issue, but
Mhm.
we've truly adopted it as well. And yeah, people don't stay together and work through those marriages and those tough times to even get to the point where they can say, I've been married 20, 30, 40 years, right? We've
Yep.
produced something. We've produced successful kids.
Mhm.
We've built something together, right? Um, yeah, and I know we got to wrap up. And I probably should have started off with this, but so I'm 40 years old now. Got married at 26. My wife was 23, so we've been married, 14 years. We started dating in May of one year. We got engaged in August, and we were married in November.
Go ahead. Go
So
ahead, Kevin.
same,
I ain't mad
same,
at
and
you.
like I said, and we've been together 14 years because we had the same values and principles
Mhm.
of what it meant to be married, right? And the best advice we ever got. I have some friends we have some friends that are older, about 10 years older, and they said this when we were engaged. It's like, look, the butterflies come and go.
Mm.
You fall in and out of love, all of this stuff. What makes a marriage work is being committed to the marriage itself.
Hmm.
If you're committed to the marriage itself, and it's one of those things like, if let's take divorce off the table, that's not a thing. So what we have is the best of what we make it. So we can make this a thing where we fight every day. We make little things, big things. We don't forgive one another. We don't seek to reconcile together and just be a mess of misery. Or we can realize what we got is all we got. All we got is us.
Hmm.
So we're going to make the best of this. And that's how you make it work. It's about mindset and mentality. If you go in and just thinking about you, and it's the sin of selfishness is what makes marriages and relationships break down. But yeah.
We are coming to the end, but oh man, one of the things that I didn't hit on that I really want to hit on is, you would think that if you're a Christian, you could go to church, and that would be a place, like a safe place at least, to be like, oh, Jerome over there, he got a nice smile, he dressed all right, he loved the Lord, I see him worshiping in church and stuff like that. That's not an option.
No.
I mean, somebody might have, had that success, but that is such a fleeting thought and a failing option.
All right, that's another show. Dating in the church.
That is another show. But yes, we are at our time, and I definitely want to hear your thoughts on it. So, thank you for chopping it up. Our first episode, not too bad. Not too bad. You guys, make sure to leave your thoughts, comments. Let us know what you like, what you didn't like, what you wish you would have seen, or where you wish the conversation would have gone. And yeah, with that, until next time. Bye,
Keep
you
the
guys.
conversation going.
Yeah.